He never heard the front door close. That night, after he pressed my face into the table because the casserole was too salty, I waited until he passed out drunk, then vanished. By the time the morning sun kissed the kitchen counter, I was 3 towns away barefoot, terrified, and finally free. My name is Riley Hart. I'm 42. I wasn't always this tired this small. 14 years ago, I was a woman with a loud laugh and messy hair who loved late-night road trips and cheap Chinese takeout. Now I flinch when cabinet doors slam. I say sorry before I speak. Noah Hart. My husband, my warden, wasn't the kind of man people warned you about. He didn't scream. He didn't hit with fists. He hurt with silence, with rules, with a smile that froze your spine. He knew exactly how to kill a person without leaving bruises. It started with a comment about my jeans too tight, too young looking. Then came suggestions about how much makeup was appropriate for a wife. Soon he was picking my clothes, my friends, my words. I quit my job because we didn't need the money. I stopped going to yoga because it made me too independent. And my sister toxic, selfish, always turning you against me. I believed him. That's the worst part. I believed every carefully planted lie. He'd time my grocery trips, count how many eggs I used, monitor my texts. I couldn't even sneeze without asking if it was okay. I stopped laughing altogether because it always earned a cold look or a mocking smirk. One time I giggled at a show we were watching, and he asked dead serious, "What's so funny about that?" And yet people loved him. "What a gentleman," they said. "You're so lucky, Riley." If only they saw how he touched my waist in public, just hard enough to remind me I belonged to him. How he whispered through his teeth when I forgot to thank him in front of guests. How he once made me sleep on the kitchen floor for raising my voice when I asked why he canceled dinner with my mother. But Friday night burned it all down. He invited some co-workers over. I wore the beige sweater he picked, smiled on cue, poured the wine, then I dared to speak when someone asked about his promotion. "She doesn't really understand corporate strategy," Noah cut in laughing. Bless her heart. Everyone chuckled. I smiled too. I even nodded. But something inside me snapped. Hours later, while he slept off his whiskey snore on the couch, I stood in the kitchen gripping a steak knife not to use, but to hold onto something solid. My knees shook. My heart pounded like a war drum. I wasn't scared of him anymore. I was scared of who I'd become. I grabbed an old backpack from the garage, still dusty from a road trip we never took. I packed socks, a t-shirt, and my expired passport. Then I scrawled a note and left it under the salt shaker. I choose life, not existence. I didn't even take shoes. I just ran. And I didn't look back, not even once. The walls were a sick shade of yellow, stained at the corners like old teeth. The bedspread felt damp, even though the air conditioner rattled cold. I didn't care. I locked the door deadbolt and chain, pulled the blinds shut, and collapsed on the scratchy carpet with my back to the door. I was in room 6 of a roadside motel that smelled like cigarettes and bleach. No plan. No map. Just a wallet, a burner phone I'd bought from a gas station an hour earlier, and a knot of panic so deep it made my hands shake. I hadn't spoken a word out loud since I left. The silence wrapped around me like a blanket soaked in adrenaline. I couldn't breathe right. Every creak of the floorboards upstairs made me flinch. Every passing car outside sounded like him finding me. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't touch the bed. I just sat there until the outside light dimmed to a quiet orange. Then I stood 1 foot numb from sitting too long and walked to the bathroom. That's when I saw her. The mirror was streaked with old water stains, but my reflection hit me like a slap. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her eyes were bloodshot, hair pulled back too tight, shoulders hunched like someone waiting to be hit. I looked like someone who apologized for existing. I leaned in closer. There were creases near my mouth I hadn't noticed before. My lips were dry and pale, my skin dull. I ran a finger down my cheek and whispered, "This is me." And just like that, I broke. The sob came from somewhere low in my stomach like it had been stored there for years. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't quiet. I sank to my knees on the cold tile and howled like I was mourning a death. Maybe I was. The death of the version of me that believed I deserved that life. The one that stayed. I don't know how long I cried. I stopped when I couldn't breathe anymore, when the hiccups took over and my head throbbed from it. I wiped my face on a towel that smelled like mildew and sat back on my heels. I reached for the burner phone. No messages. No calls. I didn't even program in any contacts. The only number I knew by heart was my brother Jonah's. We hadn't spoken in nearly 6 years. Noah had called him dangerous and unstable, which I now realized was Noah code, for he sees through me. I stared at the keypad. My thumb hovered over the buttons. What would I even say? "Hey, it's Riley." I ran away from my husband. "I'm in a motel off Route 17. I don't have shoes." It sounded ridiculous, but that's exactly what I dialed. He answered on the second ring. "Riley," he said. His voice hadn't changed, still rough and fast, like he was always in the middle of running. I didn't even say hello. I just broke into a new round of tears and choked out I left him. There was silence, no judgment, just breathing. "Where are you?" he asked. I told him. "Room 6. Blue door. Broken vending machine out front." "I'm coming," he said. "Don't open the door for anyone. I'll be there by morning." I didn't ask how. I didn't ask if he was mad. I just said, "Okay." Then I hung up and curled up on the floor under the buzzing motel light. That night, I didn't dream. I didn't even sleep. I just stared at the bathroom mirror from across the room, waiting to feel like Riley again, whoever she was, whoever she might be now. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. I didn't miss him, not even a little. I must have drifted off sometime before dawn, because I woke to a knock that nearly stopped my heart. 3 knocks, steady, then silence. I crouched beside the bed, clutching the motel's remote like a weapon. My breath came out in shaky bursts. I stayed there until I heard Jonah's voice low and familiar through the door. "Riley, it's me. It's just me." I peered through the peephole. Same crooked jaw, same messy hair, same old leather jacket. He looked older, rougher, but his eyes hadn't changed. I cracked the door chain, still latched. "Prove it's you," I whispered. He didn't flinch. "You made me eat a pine cone when we were 5. Said it was forest candy." I puked behind the shed. A laugh, raw, involuntary, escaped my throat. My fingers fumbled with the chain, and then the door swung open. He stepped inside and immediately stopped. I knew what he saw, the sagging bed, my red-rimmed eyes, the 2 thin arms, the way I flinched when the door shut behind him. "You look like hell," he said softly, but there was no judgment in it. "Feels about right." He set down a gas station bag, water protein bars, socks, and a pair of cheap sneakers. "Didn't know your size anymore," he said. "Guessed." "They're perfect," I whispered. We sat on the edge of the bed, awkward in the silence. I kept my hands clasped together so he wouldn't see them tremble. Noah said you were dangerous, I said finally, that you'd ruin everything if I let you back in. Jonah snorted. Yeah, he was real scared I'd tell you the truth, that I'd see it. You did. Yeah, he nodded. I did. I looked down at my lap. Why didn't you say something I did, Riley? But you were too far in. He had you wrapped so tight I think you forgot how to hear anything that didn't come from him. He wasn't wrong. I thought I was crazy, I said. My voice cracked. Every time I questioned something, he'd twist it. Say I was being dramatic or emotional or unstable. I believed him. Of course you did, Jonah said. That's what abusers do. They make their world the only one you see. The word hit hard, abuser. Not difficult, not flawed, not controlling. Just abuser. Tears welled up again, but I blinked them back. I was so tired of crying. I thought you hated me, I said. He sighed. I was mad. But I never hated you. I just didn't know how to reach you anymore. Every time I called, he answered. Every time I tried to visit, you were busy. I figured one day you'd either call me, or I'd be called to your funeral. The bluntness hit like a punch. I swallowed hard. I almost didn't, I whispered. He didn't say anything for a long time, just rested his hand on mine, light and steady. You're not crazy, he said. You're not weak. You survived something most people never see coming because it doesn't leave marks. I nodded, but my chest still felt heavy. He'll come looking, I said. Jonah looked at me, eyes hard. Let him. He won't get near you. Not while I'm breathing. That night we stayed in the room watching reruns on the tiny TV, barely speaking. But the silence felt different. Not like the one I lived in for years. This one was gentle, safe. I fell asleep with my head on my brother's shoulder, wrapped in the scratchy motel blanket. And for the first time in forever, I didn't wake up in fear. I just slept. The first call came the morning we left the motel. No caller ID. I stared at the screen as it buzzed in my hand, vibrating like a threat. I let it ring out. 5 minutes later, it rang again. And again. Jonah saw my face pale and reached over, snatching the phone. Don't answer, he said. Block unknowns. I nodded, heart thudding. But blocking didn't stop the dread. I knew it was him. Knew it in my bones. Noah didn't scream or beg. He would call, and call, and call, like a machine winding itself tighter with every unanswered ring. We drove north. Jonah had a buddy who owned a cabin near Lake Harlan, isolated, barely used. No cell service, no eyes. That's where we were headed. Somewhere off-grid, somewhere I could breathe. At a rest stop, I checked my old social media. I shouldn't have. But curiosity got the better of me. That's when I saw it, a post from our neighbor Cheryl. A picture of our driveway empty. If anyone's seen Riley Hart, please reach out. Her husband's worried sick. She left without a word. No phone, no shoes. Praying she's safe. Hundreds of comments. Concern. Sympathy. Some people tagged me. One even said Noah's always been a sweetheart. She's probably having one of her episodes. My stomach flipped. He was painting me as unstable, lost. A woman who wandered off like a confused pet. I turned the phone off and threw it onto the floor of Jonah's truck. They're already spinning it, I muttered. Jonah didn't need to ask. He knew. Let them, he said. The people who know you won't believe it. But what if they do? I asked, voice cracking. What if no one believes me? Then we show them. We make them believe. You're not hiding anymore, Riley. At the cabin, things were quiet for a while. No signal meant no ringing. No messages. But that didn't stop the fear from creeping in. I started checking windows, locking the door 3 times before bed, sleeping with a flashlight under my pillow. Then came the day we drove into town for supplies. The signal came back for a brief moment, enough for voicemails to download. 9 messages, all from blocked numbers. The first few were calm, sugary. "Riley, sweetheart, I just want to talk. You're scared, I get it. But we can fix this." Then they shifted. "You don't know what you've done. This little stunt, people are asking questions." And then cold fury. "You think you can hide from me. You think anyone else will love you like I did. I deleted them all." But the voice stayed in my ears, echoing like a trap snapping shut. Back in the truck, I felt something strange. A shift in Jonah's energy. He frowned, ducked beneath the front bumper. I followed his gaze. There, taped just behind the license plate, was a tiny black box with a blinking red light. A tracker. My stomach turned to ice. I stared at it like it had teeth. "He knows," I whispered. "He's watching." Jonah yanked it off and smashed it under his boot. "Not anymore," he growled. "We're going full blackout." We left the cabin that night. No goodbye, no lights, no trace. As we drove deeper into the woods, my head spun. Every shadow outside felt like him. Every flash of high beams from a passing car made me brace for impact. But inside the truck, Jonah's hand gripped the wheel like a lifeline. Steady, fierce, unshakable. "You're not alone," he said, eyes on the road. "He can watch, he can chase, but he can't erase you." I didn't answer. I just looked out the window at the dark trees rushing past. Somewhere out there, Noah was plotting, pretending, lying. But I was done running. Next time he found me, I wouldn't be hiding. I'd be ready. I never thought I'd fall apart next to a row of shopping carts. We stopped at a Target outside Maplewood. It was early morning, barely anyone there. Jonah stayed in the truck, giving me space. I told him I just needed 10 minutes. I wanted to feel normal. Buy some shampoo, maybe a fresh hoodie. Something clean. Something that didn't smell like motel carpet. But the second I stepped through those sliding glass doors, I felt it, the weight of the world pressing down on me again. Bright lights, cheerful music. People laughing over plastic storage bins and scented candles. It was too much. I grabbed a red cart and pushed it aimlessly, my eyes darting everywhere, like Noah might lunge from behind a shelf. Every man who passed too close made my skin crawl. I caught sight of my reflection in the cosmetics mirror. Pale, hollow, haunted. I dropped the cart and ran. Outside, I made it halfway back to the truck. Before my knees gave out, I collapsed between 2 parked cars, pulled my hoodie over my head, and sobbed like the air had cracked inside me. The world blurred. My breath came out in harsh gulps. I didn't care who saw. I just needed to disappear. Then I felt a hand, light and warm, rest on my back. "Hey," a voice said gently. "Is he chasing you?" I looked up. A woman knelt beside me. Late 40s, maybe. Curly hair pulled into a bun. Soft face, no makeup, just kind eyes. Her hands didn't touch me again. She waited. I nodded, still gasping. Couldn't say a word. "Okay," she said. "You're safe right now. I'm not calling anyone. I just want to give you this." She reached into her coat pocket and handed me a small, laminated card. It read, "Willow Path Women's Center. 24/7 support for survivors. You are not alone." She pointed at the number on the back. They helped me once. Years ago. I still keep that card. Just in case. I stared at it like it might burn a hole through my hand. She stood slowly. "You don't owe anyone anything. But if you call them, they'll believe you." Then she walked away. No name. No fuss. Just that quiet kindness I hadn't felt from a stranger in years. When I got back to the truck, Jonah saw my face and froze. What happened? I handed him the card. He read it, then looked at me. You want to go there? I swallowed. Yeah, I think I do. We didn't talk much on the drive. My head swam with too many thoughts. Shame, fear, but something else too, possibility. The Willow Path Center sat on a quiet side street behind a bakery. The building was small, white brick, with a purple door, and a wind chime that tinkled as we stepped inside. The woman at the front desk greeted us with a smile that didn't ask questions. She handed me a clipboard and a bottle of water, then led us to a private room with soft chairs and dim lights. Tasha, the counselor, walked in, short, stocky, with a calm presence that felt like gravity. She sat across from me. No notebook, no computer. Just her. I'm Tasha. This space is yours. You can talk, or you can sit in silence. Either way, we're here. I stared at her. I don't know where to start. You already did, she said. And just like that, the dam broke again. I told her everything. The rules, the silences, the smile that punished, the tracker, the bruises that never showed. She didn't flinch. She didn't question. When I finished, she leaned forward and said, You didn't deserve any of it. And you are not broken. You are rebuilding. That was the moment I stopped calling it a breakdown. It was a breakthrough. Tasha called it truth work. It's not for anyone else, she said. It's for you, to reclaim the story he stole from you. At the Willow Path Center, they gave me a quiet room, a journal, and a plain black binder. Inside were sleeves empty waiting. Tasha said I could fill them with whatever I needed. Photos, notes, emails, letters I never sent. Proof, not for court. Not yet, but for healing. At first, I didn't know where to start. My hands hovered over the blank journal pages like they were dangerous. But the more I sat with it, the more my body began to remember. The weight of things I had buried started surfacing. I wrote about the first time he told me I was too much. We were newly married. I laughed loudly at a movie and he paused. It stared at me and said, You don't have to perform all the time. I wrote about how I started adjusting my tone after that. I found an old photo tucked in my wallet, me and Jonah at a music festival 10 years ago. My hair, wild cheeks, sunburned eyes lit up. I hadn't seen that version of myself in so long I forgot she existed. I slid it into the first sleeve of the binder. Day by day, I added more. A receipt from the first therapist I secretly saw. Noah found it and ripped it in half, accusing me of making him look like a villain. A note from my sister scribbled on a birthday card. Miss your laugh. Call me sometime, I never did. Noah said she was toxic. Printouts of texts where he apologized. In the same breath, he blamed me. I'm sorry you made me feel that way. Tasha encouraged me to include the voicemails. I hesitated at first, scared to hear his voice again, but I knew I had to face it. I sat in a chair phone on speaker voice recorder running. First voicemail, baby, please. Just come home. I'm worried sick. Second, I know you're scared. You always overreact when things get hard. Third, you've embarrassed me. You're destroying our life. But fine, do what you want. You'll regret it. I played them all one by one and wrote how each one made me feel. Shaken, guilty, small, and then strangely, angry. Because this wasn't love. It had never been love. It was control dressed up as protection. It was a cage with satin lining, and it was all intentional. I finally wrote it down in big block letters across a blank page. He didn't lose control. He always had it. That sentence stayed with me. It clung to my ribs like armor. It changed the way I looked at everything. Every quiet correction, every disapproving glance, every rule about what I could wear or say or feel, it was all part of the same design. He hadn't just wanted obedience. He wanted erasure. He wanted me to disappear so he could remake me. But I wasn't gone. I was still here, right here, writing, remembering, rebuilding. Tasha looked through the binder one afternoon, flipping through the pages slowly. "This," she said, "is a map. Not of what happened, but how you survived." I nodded, tears burning behind my eyes. "It doesn't feel like surviving," I whispered. She looked up. "That's because you're still in the fire, but you're walking through it, and you're not alone anymore." That night, I sat cross-legged on my bed with the binder in my lap, running my fingers over the cover. I wasn't collecting pain, I was proving it existed. I was reclaiming my story piece by piece. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't dared believe in. Power. The day I filed for a protective order, my hands didn't stop shaking. I stood at the courthouse clerk's window binder clutched to my chest like a shield. Tasha was beside me, calm as ever, reminding me with every breath that I wasn't alone. But still I was terrified. Terrified of his eyes, his voice, the part of him that still lingered in my head whispering, "No one will believe you." But I had to try. The hearing was scheduled 4 days later. That morning, I wore a navy sweater, my sweater not one Noah ever picked. I did my own hair, soft curls, a little uneven. I wanted to look like myself, even if I wasn't sure who that was anymore. Jonah drove me to the courthouse. We didn't speak much, but his hand stayed firm on my shoulder when I walked inside. I needed that grounding, because Noah was already there, polished, calm, Armani suit, clean shave, that same easy smirk he wore like armor. He didn't look at me, not at first, but I felt his presence like a storm waiting to strike. He had a lawyer, some smug man in an expensive tie. I didn't. Just me, my binder, and the tremble in my voice. When the judge entered, I stood on wobbly knees. Tasha sat just behind me, silent and steady. The air in the courtroom felt cold and sharp. Noah spoke first. His lawyer painted me as unstable, said I had a history of emotional overreactions. They even mentioned the Target parking lot breakdown, as if grief was proof I couldn't be trusted. Noah played the part perfectly, concerned, reasonable, like a man trying to save a broken wife. Then it was my turn. I stood, hands trembling, voice barely above a whisper. But I didn't stop. I told the judge about the control, the silence, the suffocation dressed as love. I handed over the voicemails, the journal entries, photos of the tracker Jonah found, witness statements from the Women's Center. I read aloud the birthday card from my sister, the receipts for therapy, the copy of the note I left behind, "I choose life, not existence." Each word burned through my throat, but I spoke them anyway. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just told the truth, plain and raw. Noah's smirk cracked the moment I said he didn't lose control, he had it. That was the first time he looked up at me. And what I saw in his eyes wasn't love or sadness or even anger. It was fear, because I wasn't quiet anymore. The judge took a long pause before speaking. "I've reviewed the evidence and heard both sides. Ms. Hart, your testimony was detailed and credible. This court believes you." And just like that, the order was granted. Full protection. He was not to come near me, not to call, text, follow, or contact me through anyone else. He lost control. For good. I didn't look at him when I walked out, but I felt the tension in his jaw, the way his hands flexed at his sides. His lawyer touched his arm, whispered something. Noah didn't answer. His face was stone, but underneath it the cracks had formed. Outside the courthouse, the sun hit my face like a baptism. Jonah exhaled. "You did it," he said, pride tucked behind his grin. Tasha hugged me tight and warm. "You told the truth, and it mattered." I looked down at the binder in my hands, now heavy with more than pain. It held proof. It held my story. And now, it held freedom. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was winning. The first night in my new apartment, I slept with the windows open. Downtown was noisy, sirens, late-night laughter, the occasional dog barking 2 blocks away. But none of it scared me. It wasn't Noah pacing the hallway. It wasn't silence pressing down on me like a threat. It was life. Loud, messy, real life. And for the first time in forever, I was part of it. The studio was small. A mattress on the floor, hand-me-down furniture from Jonah's garage, and walls as bare as the day I moved in. But it was mine. Every creak in the floor belonged to me. Every scuff on the wall, every ray of sun that spilled through the blinds was mine. No one else's. I painted my name on the mailbox in thick black letters. R. Hart. Not Mrs., not wife of. Just me. A week later, I opened a storage bin I hadn't touched in years. Inside were old brushes, dusty acrylic tubes, and 3 blank canvases I'd kept through every move but never used. My fingers trembled when I touched them, like I was meeting an old friend I wasn't sure would remember me. I pulled one out and set it by the window. That night, I painted until my shoulders ached. Not for money, not for praise. Just for the release. Colors exploded across the canvas, no shape, no rules. Just movement, emotion, freedom. I started sleeping through the night. I joined a trauma recovery group at the Women's Center. At first, I sat in the back, arms crossed, convinced I didn't belong. But then someone said it. He made me feel like I was the problem, like I should apologize just for breathing. And I cracked open. Week by week I shared. I cried. I laughed loudly, freely, without flinching. We weren't broken women. We were rebuilding from blueprints no one had ever shown us. And together, we were finding the words that had been taken from us. One Tuesday, a man named Caleb introduced himself after group. Kind eyes, coffee-stained voice tattoos peeking from under a worn flannel. He wasn't pushy. He didn't ask for my number. Just said, "You speak like you've come a long way." I smiled, surprised by how easy it was. A month later, we had coffee. Then another. Then a walk through the city, where I didn't once look over my shoulder. With him, I didn't shrink. I didn't rehearse my answers or second-guess my laugh. He liked that I painted. He asked about Jonah. He listened. And he never tried to own me. I don't know what it will become. But it doesn't scare me. That's new. That's everything. One morning, I stood in front of my mirror, the tall, cracked one I picked up at a flea market, and stared at my reflection. Noah used to hate red lipstick. Said it was too loud, that it made me look like I was trying too hard. So I twisted the cap slowly, deliberately, and applied it. Not for anyone, not to prove anything, just because I wanted to. I studied my face, the lines around my mouth, the light returning to my eyes, and I smiled. Not a small, polite one. A full, unfiltered smile that reached all the way to my ribs. Then I grabbed my keys, slung my paint-stained tote over my shoulder, and stepped into the sunlight. It felt different on my skin now. Warmer. Real. No shadows trailing me. No weight dragging behind. Just me walking forward. Free. Whole. And unapologetically myself. I'm not who I was. I'm who I was meant to be. And I'm not sorry anymore. After 14 years in a controlling marriage, Riley Hart escapes in the dead of night, leaving behind everything but a note. I choose life, not existence. What follows is a raw, emotional journey through fear, survival, and rediscovery. From hiding in a motel to facing her abuser in court, Riley reclaims her voice one painful truth at a time. With the help of her estranged brother, a quiet stranger, and a fierce trauma counselor, she confronts the damage Noah caused and begins to rebuild the woman he tried to erase. In the end, Riley doesn't just survive, she thrives. This is a story about breaking free, finding strength, and saying, I'm not sorry anymore. If this story moved, you don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more powerful narratives like this. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most.